So hello and welcome to this webinar on managing your team and case access with Intella Connect. So my name is John Pearce and I'll be presenting this webinar today. So document review with Intella Connect. Unlike Intella Desktop, Connect has been designed to accommodate document review workflows for individual users or for teams of users. So that includes batching of documents and the functionality for the user to code the documents within those batches. Connect uses a mixture of user accounts, roles and permissions. So that allows the administrator to set up review tasks and to control which users have access to specific documents and functions that they can perform in a given case. So user accounts in Intella, well, Intella Connect has the ability to use two types of user accounts. These include user accounts derived from LDAP and user accounts created manually in Connect. So user accounts derived from LDAP, Connect can be configured to use LDAP directories. So for example, Windows Active Directory. And that is useful for large businesses that have a number of Connect users. It sort of eliminates the need for each user to have two separate accounts, one for Windows and one for Connect and having different passwords and that sort of thing. So they can just use their Windows account with their Connect system if that's been all set up. Connect has a wizard to set that up under the settings and LDAP. However, the details for this are sort of out of the scope for this webinar, so we won't go into that. Manually created accounts is what you sort of see there on the screen, and they're quite simple to create, and we're just going to do one right now to show you how it's done. So basically you click on the add button and you type in a username. So we're going to type in Sam, and I'm going to put quite a simple password here, but you'd put something a bit more complex if you're doing this in real life. There is a generate random password option here if you want to use that. And basically click on set, and then that gives you the user Sam there. So it's as simple as that, basically, creating accounts. There are no permissions with this. We'll get onto permissions in the next part. The power over who can see specific documents comes from the roles and permissions, which we can set on the screen here. So roles are created for the type of work a user would undertake in a case. So for example, roles can be set up for your case managers or your case admins. You might have a role set up for your first pass reviewers, or maybe a role set up for your second pass reviewers. And you may have roles set up for restrictive reviewers who can only see certain things. But roles are really based around your workflow and your business needs. So totally flexible. You can just create a role for anything. In this case here, I've got a case admin role. Some of these roles are in here by default and some I've created. The case admin role has a lot of permissions to it. So basically a case administrator would be someone who can go into a case and do any searching, any tagging. They can get items and batch them up into batches, and then they can assign those batches to other reviewers. So they basically have all the power in the case. In fact, if we go to the Grant New button and we look at the list of what permissions we can give this role, there's hardly any left in the list there. So this role has pretty much all the permissions. For this demonstration, we're going to create a couple of roles. One of them is going to be a restrictive reviewer. So basically you just click on add. And a restrictive reviewer would be someone who you have a case, you have a lot of information in there, but you want to restrict them to only looking at batches that you have created for them to review and code. So they don't have any other access to do anything else apart from review batches and code those documents. So you just type in a name for the restricted reviewer and then go to that role, and then we start giving that role some permissions. So in this case, the first permission we'll give them is can access a case. I won't go through all of these permissions here and explain them. I think these are in the manual, but I'll just add about 5 permissions to this one and explain the ones that I add. So can add a case. that means that they can access a case. If they don't have that permission, they can't access any cases. So that's quite simple. Second permission is we're going to say can see all batches, and that allows them to see the batches that we assign to them. You might want to use the inbuilt messaging system in Intella Connect. So we have one built in. So we can give them the can send and receive instant messages permission. And there's one more that I'm going to give them, and that is can skip review of items when coding. And what that means is when we create coding layouts, the coding decisions that the reviewer makes, some of those can be made mandatory. So they have to actually code the document before they move on to the next document. Now, in a use case scenario where that's an issue is that a junior reviewer may come across a document and they don't know how to code it, and they might need to seek some advice from a senior lawyer. So giving them this permission, they have an option where they can click a checkbox and skip over that particular item, and they can come back and check it later on. So that allows them to carry on with the review. Otherwise, without this option, they'd have to go find the senior lawyer, get them to review it, and then make a decision to carry on with the review. So let's give them that one as well. And I'm going to give them one more, which is what they can see in Connect. And these are the ones at the bottom here. For the restricted reviewer, I'm just going to give them the review tab, and that is all they're going to be able to see. So that's a restricted reviewer role set up, and I'm just going to add another role. This one is going to be a restricted tag. Where you would use that is you may have a case that has a lot of data in it, and through the filtering process you have highlighted some privileged items or some confidential items, and those items are not allowed to be seen by the reviewers who are doing the review, but you want the reviewers to be able to search the case. So you're going to give them the search tab so they can search the case, but you don't want them to see these items that have been marked as privileged or confidential. And in some cases, that can be an order from a court. You know, if there's two parties in dispute about reviewing the data, the court might say, well, the technical person can do the processing and the reviewers or the investigators are not allowed to look at the privileged material. Restricted tag. And we go into that one. And I'm just going to start off with giving similar permissions that we did before. A little bit of a tedious way to do this. We will improve this. I think we're going to have a list where you can just pick out the items that you want to put in there. All right, so let's just start off with that, and we'll give them the search UI, and we'll also give them the review UI, and we'll also give them the dashboard as well. And I haven't put you can use the instant messaging here, but that doesn't really matter because we're not going to look at that today. But anyway, so we have now a couple of roles set up, and we have set the permissions for those roles. So now we'll go into seeing how this all actually works in a bit of a demonstration with each reviewer that logs in. So to do that, we need to go to the Cases tab, and we need to have a case that we want to share, and we go down to Authorizations, and straight away you can see the different roles that you can add users to, and I've been added to the admin role here. The restricted reviewer, we might set that to Bob, and the restricted tag will set to Sam, our new user that we created. Let's go OK on that, and now we're ready to share a case. So we click on share, we wait for the link to turn blue, and then I'm just going to copy that into a new window and bring that over. So we just worked in the Connect admin side, the Connect server, and now we're looking at the case that's been shared from a user's perspective, and we have 3 users. So I'm going to log on as myself first, and we're just creating the case here now. So straight away you can see that I have all of the tabs at the top here. So I have the dashboard, I can go into search, I can go into the tag area. You can see here we have a confidential tag and a privileged tag. In fact, I have just forgot one thing that we need to go and do, and that is under here, under our restricted tag, we actually need to add a restriction for those tags. So let's quickly do that now. And that is this permission here. It's sort of a opposite permission, so it cannot see items tagged with. So let's type in privileged, and we'll just add another one for confidential. Okay, so we should be all set now. So back in the case, so this is me, and I can see those confidential and privileged items there. I can run searches. I can look at the items, and I can go and maybe batch some items if we need to batch some items. So again, create batches. That's a permission that you can set for a role. I'll just call it webinar, and I'm going to use a coding layout. First pass review would be good. Okay, so then I can go into the review window and I can see my new batch that I've created here. And in this case, I'm going to assign this to Bob, so that when Bob logs on, he can do that review. And in fact, there's another batch here. I'm going to assign that to maybe Sam. All right. When I'm logged on as a case admin, I can do pretty much anything. Let's log out. We'll go Sam this time. So Sam, you can see there's the reporting tab is not there because we didn't give them permission, but we did give them permission to dashboard, the search, and the review. So under the search tab, if we look in tags, then we don't see those tags here for confidential and privilege. And if they did a search over the case, any items in those two tags would not be viewable for them, so they won't be able to see them. In the review side, they can see the batches, and this is the batch that's been assigned to them, and they can start the review from there. And then use the coding layout that we've assigned and carry on from there. All right, let's log out and log in as Bob. Now Bob was in the restricted reviewer role, and straight away you can see all Bob can do is go into the review tab, and all Bob can actually do in a case is start a review. So that's because Bob has not a lot of permissions there to do a lot of stuff. So anyway, this is all about the way you do your workflows and your business requirements, and the way how we can sort of control and restrict, if we need to, users on what they can see in a case. That's pretty much about it, really. I mean, it's a short presentation, but if anyone has any questions, if you want to put them in there now, we can quickly go through any. And I don't see anything coming up for questions, so I'd like to thank everyone for attending, and we'll see you on the next webinar. Thank you.